The hardest question you can ask any board gamer is what are your top 10 favorite board games at this moment? So today I'm asking myself and the other legendary tacticians this very question. We'll put timestamps down in the comments section so you can get to the good bits quickly, and please be sure to let us know whose list is the best because we are perennially trying to beat each other at everything we do. Coming up are our favorite 30 board games. This is Flash with Legendary Tactics. Nato and Cax, are you both ready to fly through your top 10 games and tell us why you love them so much?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, let's get going.
So remember, lads, it is not a competition, so let's get right into this. Nato, tell us what it takes for a game to make it into your top 10 list, and also tell us what your number 10 pick is.
Well, what I look for mainly is replayability and getting, a game that just demands to be put on the table. And that's for various reasons, and I'll be going over all of those with you. So we were looking at best games of all time, and so I really felt I had to put Axis and Allies at my number 10.
Ooh.
Oh wow,
Okay.
nice.
And I know it hasn't aged particularly well, but when I was a kid, like Axis and Allies is the game that probably got me into the hobby. So I have to give it the credit it deserves. And it still holds up. It's still fun to play, but the mechanics might have aged a little bit at this point.
Yeah, and for me, I love games that tell a story. That's going to be a theme in a lot of my games on my list. But getting right to it, number 10 for me would be Mansions of Madness. I love that this game was a really kind of experimental with using the app to go along with it. I love the storytelling feature of it. I love the minis of the game. I love a lot about this game. So there's a lot to like about Mansions of Madness.
Yeah, it definitely felt innovative when we first tried it.
100%. Yeah, Flash, what was yours?
Well, to be in my top 10, the game must have three elements. It has to have an elegant mechanic, the kind of mechanic that's both intuitive and competitive. Usually this involves some kind of evolving game. Number 2, I have to have fun playing the game. I mean, obviously, that's probably the main reason people play games, but if it's too stressful or too rules heavy, that detracts from my enjoyment. I really love social games that are complex, but then appear to be simple. So finally, my third criteria is that I like games that are predominantly skill-based rather than luck-based. So games that force efficient choices and give many options. Those are my favorites. So for my number 10 pick, I'm going with Through the Ages. Vlaada Chvátil is one of the best board game designers, and this is his masterpiece. I love the card drafting system, and it makes cards cheaper the longer they're available. The game has lots of choice, purposeful development as your civ advances, and there's so many paths to victory. Nato, tell us about your number 9.
Now, number 9, I went with No Retreat, The Russian Front, which I think is an absolutely brilliant design. It recreates the entirety of the German invasion of Russia in the Second World War and tells it with very low counter density, very elegant mechanics, especially the counterblow mechanic. And I think it's just a really, really smart design. And of the hex and counter ones that I've played, it's the one that just it seems the most compelling of the ones that have come out in recent years.
And for me, my number 9 is Race for the Galaxy. I love this game because of all the games on our lists, most of them would be taking between 1.5 to 3 hours to play. And this game, you can have a game done in half an hour. I have the digital app, and I can have a game done in about 5 minutes. So I love that I can just pull up on my phone, have a quick battle, and that hard AI actually on the app is quite a challenge. So I really do enjoy Race for the Galaxy.
You love your engine builders. So one reason I really love gaming is to socialize and to solve problems collectively. So I really enjoy cooperative games, but in a list of 10, I only had space for 2 on my list. So Time Stories is my number 9 choice. So that's a dexploration game, beautiful artwork, compelling narrative, fluid game mechanic that keeps everyone involved and active throughout the game. And what I really like about the game is that as time travelers, you can visit whatever genre you want to from module to module. Frankly, the first one, the Macy case, is my favorite. The only downside is it does lack replayability for each scenario, so that's why it's not higher on my list. But Nato, tell us about your number 8 pick.
For number 8, I kind of vacillated between Scythe and this one. But I eventually went with Viticulture from Stonemaier Games, and I just find that is the perfect end of the gaming night game. It's just the right amount of strategy, the right amount of luck, the right amount of decision making,
And the right amount of wine.
Yes, and the right amount of wine, which sometimes accompanies game night. But I just find like it's just such a fun game. The Tuscany expansion is excellent and really expands the game, but keeps the spirit, true. And that's why I decided to go with number 8, and that's my worker placement game for the.
I'm really glad somebody got that on the list because it is a great game, but it didn't make my list.
Well, Flash, I'm really glad you brought up the cooperative aspect because that actually mirrors what my number 8 game is, which is Sherlock Holmes Consulting Agency.
Oh, wow.
And I have a lot of fun. A lot of my games actually they wax nostalgic for me, and this one is definitely reminds me of trips to Gen Con in the car, losing my voice, and playing with you guys. And just having a really great time with it, and just that we could all sit back, relax, and puzzle through the mystery as a group there. It's a lot of fun.
It's really well put together, for sure. My number 8 game, many gamers will actually cringe when they hear how far down the list this game is, but I suspect it's higher on my list than any of yours. So this game has it all. Twilight Imperium 4th Edition. To me, it's the consummate board game. I don't even know if you can call yourself a true board gamer if you haven't played this game, but game of galactic conquest. It's got minis, negotiation, political intrigue, tech trees, economics, and at its core is the mechanism from Puerto Rico, where players choose one of 8 strategy cards, and it gives you a slight advantage, and I love that. It appeals to my imagination. There's a plethora of choice, and I think for me it's more of an experience than a game. So the reason it's not higher on my list is that it's hard to get to the table with the 8-hour playtime. Nato, what's your number 7?
My number 7 is Labyrinth, War on Terror, which is, I don't know how many games Cax and I have played of that game, and I mean,
it's in the hundreds, I bet.
Oh, geez, we've played so many games of it, and it's a really great design. It's sometimes feels a little bit swingy and luck based, and there's definitely a momentum aspect to the gameplay. But overall, I just love that the way the game flows. The expansions are all really good. And that's something we need to spend more time on, Cax, is exploring the expansions. And just overall, it's just a really neat design. As long as you can get past the subject matter, which can be sensitive for some, it is a really great game experience.
And rolling in for number 7 for me is a game of epic stature, Gloomhaven. I think we needed to have this definitely appear on our list because it is just such an epic game right now. It's got it all. This is your classic dungeon crawler, and Cellofair Games has done an amazing job with this game. Over 90 scenarios to be had in the booklet there, and miniatures, and just so much storytelling, and it's just I love it.
Well chosen. Yes. My number 7 is the game that actually got me back into board games back in 2002. So this might be akin to your Axis and Allies, Nate, but it was part of the renaissance of board games that showed there were all kinds of unexplored game mechanics just waiting to be found. That game is Puerto Rico. And I confess that much of my love from this game comes from the memories of playing it. But without Puerto Rico, Twilight Imperium doesn't even exist. So, but the one thing that still perplexes me is I have no clue how this didn't win the Spiel des Jahres award. It was in 2002. It was beaten out by Villa Palati, which I've never heard of. But anyways, Nato, what's your number 6 pick?
Number 6, you guys were going to accuse me of picking like 10 coin games to fill the list. So this is my only one. Even though they're all excellent, I actually think A Distant Plane, which is the coin game that recreates the war in Afghanistan, is the most intriguing of all the coin designs. And that is just because of the interplay between the 4 factions. It kind of puts you in that situation, and I feel you can really learn from the experience and see what a mess the war in Afghanistan really is. And but it handles it really elegantly, and it's just basically through the way the game flows that you act in the way that probably historically the factions acted. So great game, and very above average design even for coin.
Very cool. There is a five game limit on GMT games, though, Nate. I should inform you now.
Hey, I'm only at 2. I'm only at 2 so far.
So far, that's right. And Nate, I actually dabbled with Cuba Libre as my number 10, and it was very close to getting onto my top 10 as well. So I really do appreciate the coin as well. So rolling in for number 6 for me is Robinson Crusoe. And I just love the storytelling of this game again, and the narrative piece. I have, again, more great memories of playing with my family and children around this game, and having just enjoying them getting caught up in the decision making and the fighting the beasts and fighting for survival and everything else. So just some great, just the challenges that each level presents. So it's really just a great game for young and old alike.
A lot of fun cooperatively. So mine is also a cooperative, my number 6, and it's a campaign and it's a legacy game, Pandemic Legacy Season 1. Everybody knows this game. I don't need to tell everyone about it. But Seasons 2 and 0, I think both reinvented themselves beautifully, but for me, Season 1 is the definitive experience. So I'll admit it was very difficult to get over the very rational desire not to rip up cards and write on the game, but in the end, I think it was that evolving game board and the developing characters that took an already great game system and made it into a classic. Nato, you're up with number 5.
I know that this one will be contentious with you, Flash, but I went with Eclipse. And
oh, yes.
Exactly, partly for the reason that you outlined.
Twilight Imperium Light.
Well, yeah, because you're actually Eclipse is a game you're actually going to get to the table, because it plays about, takes about a half hour per player. So it's very doable to sit down and play a 2-player game within an hour, if you both know what you're doing. And it has a lot of the same kind of mechanics like drama. You've got the big space battles, you've got the colonization, you've got the resource management. It has a lot of great things. It's a very elegant system, and Second Dawn really takes the components to a new level and cleans up the rules and so forth. So it is one of those games that really approaches perfection in my eyes. So that had to be on my list.
Looks beautiful. The components look really nice in it.
So number 5 on my list is a game that has been very quickly rising the ranks, because I really only got this game at Christmas, but had been playing a little bit earlier, and that is Stonemeyer's Wingspan.
Yes, great game.
And absolutely love this game. I have the app as well, which is just gorgeous. It's a beautifully put together app. The board game is second to none. I love that there's a great bird feeder in the game that you can construct. The parts are all quality in the game. There's just enough strategy to make it really intriguing every game. I love how every time you just never know which direction your board's going to go when you start. And so it's just a really great game. I can actually see this game going higher on my list as I play it more.
Very good. Yeah, that's a very short period of time to make it so high on your list.
Yeah, but it's a great game.
That's awesome. So it was actually you two who convinced me to get my number 5 game back in September. And I know with you it was a miss, Cax, but for me it was a hit. And the game is Root. So such a pleasant surprise. And like most people, I was offensively bad at it when I started. But I also find that the games I love most tend to be the games that I lose most. Just like Coup, which unfortunately didn't make my top 10 this year. But to really understand this asymmetrical game, I think you need to have at least a passing sense of what the other players' rules are, so there's a little overhead on the game, but overall it's a game that I keep wanting to go back to over and over to find better ways to play each faction. So Nato, that brings us to your 4th favorite game of all time. What is it?
Well, Root was based on the coin system, right? So
yes, yeah, that's fair.
I'll have to get you into that.
Nice, great segue.
Work in there, very good.
Yeah. My number 4 is an old classic. That we used to play a lot, and that we haven't played in recent years, but I'd really like to get back to, and that's Acquire.
Oh, wow.
Acquire is just
cool.
one of those games that it just is an absolute classic. It's a brilliant design. There's maybe some aspects of it that are a little bit dated, but overall it is a game you can play over and over. I used to have there used to be an app that I had when I had like a Palm Pilot or whatever, and I used to play it a ton. And I haven't played it much because I haven't seen one done for newer systems, but that game is just so classic and just so much fun to play.
Well, Nate, I don't know what that saying goes about great minds, but I have to tell you, it rings true here because my number 4 is Acquire as well.
Oh, nice.
Nice, great minds.
And all the reasons you stated, and I can't agree more. The one thing I did want to point out though is it would have been higher on my list. There's one drawback I find with this game. It's brilliantly put together, but you can have the occasional game, and it's very rare where you get shut out. And if you get shut out of a game, it's you could talk to Dolus about this one. It's watching from the sidelines, and it's
that
nothing
was
but
the funniest game to play as his opponent, though. That was hilarious. I'll never forget that game.
No, it will ring. It just rings in the memories. But you'll basically just be sitting on the sideline watching, and there's nothing more painful than that. But all the other reasons make it an amazing game. So it is number 4 for me.
So my number 4 is Acquire. No, just kidding. It's another new game to me. Cax, you've already spoken to it, Wingspan. I've played it in the digital and in the tabletop game. Both are fantastic. Nice medium weight game. An unexpectedly pleasant theme. I'm not usually into engine builders because I'm so terrible at them, but this one's a lot of fun. And kids can have fun. They do it as more of a collection game, and the whole family's gotten into it. And so tons of fun. And we are down to our top 3 games now. Nato, what's your number 3?
Number 3 for me, just because, again, the brilliance of the design is Terra Mystica.
Wow.
Terra Mystica
Very cool.
is just a game that you just sit back and admire how well it's balanced, how many intriguing strategic decisions there are. I always like to say that in Terra Mystica you can do anything you want, but you just can't do everything you want, and that's what I like about it. You never feel hemmed in. You always feel you've got lots of options, maybe not too many options, but just you've got a fair number of options. But it's just, what is the best play, and how do I maximize this? This, and there's a lot to kind of keep track of. It's not that it's complicated, but there's a lot of bonuses and so forth you have to be aware of. But overall, the design, it's a very brainy kind of game, but the design is so slick and smooth. You could play this, your entire lifetime and not get to all of the strategic depths.
Wow, very cool, very cool. So I think it's after comparing our lists here, we're going to see that we are clearly a channel that's very cohesive because Flash, my number 3 is one you've brought up already, and that is Pandemic Legacy Season 1. And for all the reasons you stated earlier as well, it's such a great game. I just love the revolutionary idea of the legacy component, though, that the idea of ripping those cards up, of altering the board, which is just, it was just so new to the idea, the concept of gaming. And that was for me where it took a very ordinary game. Like I never enjoyed Pandemic itself, and it just brought it to life.
I've actually found like there were other Legacy games before that, but they weren't that great. Like Pandemic Legacy was the first one that was really great at it.
Yes,
Nato,
I was going to say
say
Risk Legacy happened first, and I think there was another Legacy game in between before they finally got to Pandemic.
Okay.
Fairly average, though. So let's get to my number 3. This could well be, I believe it's the oldest game on any of our lists. It's climbed super high in the ranks in the last 2 years for me, the game Diplomacy. Online gaming, I found in 2020, has exploded, and the tournament scene's gotten really huge. Part of that, I think, is because the map for this game is absolute perfection. There's so much depth, there's scholarship, there's so much potential in this game for thinking about it and replaying it. And I love the balance between tactics, strategy, and negotiation. And in order to dominate, you need to be a master of all 3 to be really competitive. So there's a real reason why this game is growing in popularity this year, and a reason that it's hung around for so long. Number 2 for Nato.
Number 2, I'm going to say that it's kind of one of a series of games, but I'm gonna pick what I think is the best of them, and that's Twilight Struggle. It kind of falls into the same category as 1989 or 1960, Making of a President, and there's a bunch of other games, but I think Twilight Struggle, for me, there's a reason why it was on Board Game Geek's list as number one for many years, and it's just because the design is just so brilliant. There's so much tension. Is it comfortable to play? No, it's stressful to play. But I mean, the fact that you can be so immersed in that Cold War conflict, and it just sucks you right in, and you know, the fact that you can break out in a cold sweat, you know, when your opponent is about to play a card. I think that's an amazing design and an amazing gaming experience, even if it's not always, you know, the most pleasant to play.
Well, I really thought that was going to be your number one. I'm really curious what your number one is now. I think I know, though. But
yeah,
we'll
probably
know.
Well, Nate, again, two great minds just working
right.
in unison here, because my number two is also Twilight Struggle. And I do appreciate all the things that you just talked about in the game. And for me, I love the idea of mitigating your opponent's events in your hand. And I just love that. I love that mechanic they worked into the game. The fact that you'll draw a hand of 8 cards and 3 or 4 are your opponents, and you got to figure out a way to undo those events as best as you can. So that's just a genius mechanic they built into the game.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't even have to pause to think about why Cosmic Encounter is my number 2 favorite game of all time. It's fun, it's easy to learn, it's full of alien races that let you break the game's foundational rules, it's infinitely replayable, it's a blast even when you lose, and it's the kind of game you'll find yourself telling stories about long after the game happened. For instance, remember that time that Cax was the alien butler and we turned him into our lapdog, Nato?
Oh yeah, that was hilarious.
That was a lot of fun. So Cosmic Encounter is a board game that reminds me why I play board games. It brings us to it's a game that creates memories, and it's so incredibly fun to play. So this brings us to the moment everyone's been waiting for. Nato, what is your favorite game of all time?
For me, it was a bit of a tough choice with Twilight Struggle, but in the end, I had to go with Android Netrunner, and the reason being is that game, the scope of that game, the fact that, I don't know, again, talk about games that I've played a lot with Cax, 200, 300 games. I don't know. I've lost count.
Easily.
I have no idea. We used to play easily. At one point, we were playing sort of 15 games a week.
Yeah, that's right.
Without even like breaking a sweat, never bored of it. And it still is compelling. It just has all the best parts of Magic the Gathering, poker, and a whole bunch of innovative new mechanics that still feel fresh. And there's so many interactions. It's just an endlessly fascinating game. And ultimately, just based on sheer play time, the amount of games I have played of it, I figure it has to be my number one.
And as for me, Nate, Android Netrunner
Great minds think alike.
Yes, Android Netrunner takes my number one spot as well. Nate, you were talking about the games that we played together, about 15 a week. But you may or may not know that I was also playing online as well, and I'd be playing another 5 to 6 a day besides the ones we were playing.
Oh, we were worried about you at one point. It was pretty bad.
I was heavily addicted to this game and still love it very much. There's all the things Nate mentioned, along with the thing I might add on is asymmetrical play. I love that you can, being either the corp or the runner, the winning conditions change, of course, according to which faction. And I love the tension that play that just hangs in the air in between turns when you're waiting for your opponent to complete their turn, and you know the information that can really damage you and plays that can really damage you, and you are just praying they do not do those things. So I just love it about the game. Great game. Amazing game.
So we're down to our last game, and I guess I'm the odd duck out because it's not Android Netrunner. That's a great game, but ultimately my number one pick comes down to the game that I would choose to play over all the rest when I go to the game cupboard. What game would I force my friends to learn and to love? What game would I even go so far as to buy component organizers and protective sleeves to ensure that my beverage drinking buddies don't spill on it? Cax. That game, and my favorite game of all time, is Kemet. I love Kemet. The combat system is the best of any game I've played. The miniatures are have massive appeal for me. And who doesn't want to grab the scorpion and just get it on your team and sting everybody? There's so many cool techs that you can pursue. The components, the gameplay, the theme, all of it gets me super jazzed. And every game comes down to the wire, and players are forced to work together to stop the apparent board leader. And all in all, to date, this is hands down the best game I've ever played. So, there you have it. These are our 30 favorite games. If you want to let us know where you agree with us and where you don't, please add your comments below. And also, feel free to post your top 10 so we can criticize your picks.
Yes.
And don't forget to like the video if you like the lists, subscribe if you think we earned it, and come again when you can stay a little longer. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you for watching.